I'm WFTV Channel 9 anchor and investigative reporter Daralene Jones, based here in Orlando, Florida. Many of you have followed my extensive reporting, Goliath Falls, which is a series of reports that focus on my exclusive interview with Chris Delgado, the former CEO of Goliath Ventures. It's about 7 hours total, recorded over several weeks in the weeks after he was arrested and placed on home confinement. In May, just 4 days after our first story aired, we received a federal subpoena for that video of that interview, which is not protected by reporter privilege. We are posting the interview here on YouTube so that you can also see it. During my interview, Christopher Delgado made a lot of accusations against some of the people who worked for Goliath Ventures and some high-profile people he was connected with in the Central Florida community. I have been in contact with attorneys representing some of those who Delgado made allegations against. So far, none of them have been charged with any crime. So without independent confirmation of the allegations, we here at Eyewitness News made the ethical journalistic decision not to name them at this time. It is important for you all to know that in journalism, we are held to a much higher standard than bloggers and social media enthusiasts who may post content on their platforms with a less stringent verification process. We will continue with our diligent reporting to verify the facts in this important ongoing federal case. And we will update this site and all of our WFTV platforms with the latest information as we do so. All right, so tell me your first and last name again and who you are.
I'm Chris Delgado, the former CEO of Goliath Ventures.
So I want to revisit a couple of things from yesterday, just so I have clarity. The contract agreements, like who wrote those?
Yeah, originally the agreements were mirrored after MLP because we were originally white labeling their fund. And we had already had people invested in MLP. So we wanted to make sure that our agreements kind of read similar to theirs. It wasn't until later on where, securities questions started getting, they started getting brought up and potential issues with the SEC. And that's when we went to different law firms to have our agreements reviewed and restructured.
I know what MLP is, but what is MLP?
MLP is my liquidity partner. They were a crypto liquidity fund that a lot of people were invested in. Kind of like we discussed before, how MLP took off was everyone in crypto was involved. Everyone in crypto was invested in this company. So it kind of gave it the golden stamp of approval. If every crypto person is investing in this company, it must be legit. It's kind of been one of those things where we've had confirmation that funds are frozen and funds are there. And we've had the other side where it's just kind of all a rumor mill of, it was a Ponzi and it just collapsed.
So do you know who wrote the original MLP agreement?
All we know that the company was structured in the UK, specifically in London, but we weren't aware of who the law firm that wrote that agreement.
So the cryptocurrency, every time I think I understand it, then I don't. So how did you learn to invest in cryptocurrency?
So I was doing a lot of consulting in Dubai, and I was working with a lot of these crypto influencers to help structure their businesses, to help them get them on media, kind of build a more structured form into what they were trying to do, because they were invested in so many different projects, and they need someone to kind of come in and hone in on what's making money, what's not making money. And that was my job for the longest time. And so as I was making a lot of money in Dubai, I was investing heavily into crypto. And I was asking them, they all own Bitcoin and Ethereum and all these tokens, and they're not selling them, but they're paying all their staff, they're taking trips, they're doing all these things. So I'm asking them, how are you guys making money on your crypto if you're not selling it? And that's how crypto liquidity kind of came into my realm, was them introducing me to these different funds, MLP being the biggest.
So were you doing day trading? How did that?
No, I mean, it's a fund. So you invest your money. They do all the liquidity pairings on Uniswap or whatever DeFi platform they were using. And then you would earn a portion of the transaction fee back.
Is that like a buy and hold kind of thing? Or
No, not like a MicroStrategy aspect, but basically you're offering liquidity or money on a DeFi network. And as things sell, because you're holding those pairings, the platform's paying you a transaction fee. The most simple form is when you transact a wire and you send money from one bank to another and you pay the $30 fee, that goes to the bank. They're facilitating the movement of funds from one branch to another. You're doing the same thing in a DeFi platform.
In a
Decentralized.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Decentralized.
Yeah.
Okay. Talk to me like I don't know what
Yeah.
cryptocurrency is. So yesterday we talked about two different pots, like this company or liquidity pool that you were trying to get up and running with the folks in Dubai. So help me understand, explain to me like what this was supposed to look like when it came to fruition.
Yeah, I mean, the original idea was we wanted control of our money and we were raising money. And so we didn't want to put millions and millions of dollars with MLP with another fund. So that's why we were developing our own liquidity pools. So the idea, the original concept was that we would still have money with MLP, maybe not as much, but then we would hold vast majority into our own fund. That was the original concept of what we were trying to build.
And that's what never came to fruition.
I mean, it's running today. You know, it's about 2.5 years late. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, listen, we're working with developers. They're telling us a month out, a month and a half out, the very latest. We're dumping millions of dollars into development. You can't not believe that this is going to come to fruition at some point. Did I know it would be 2.5 years later? Absolutely not. Were we doing everything in our possession to move this as fast as possible? Absolutely. And so it was just one of those things where you're trying and you're trying and you're trying, but you just roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. And, you know, and we're leaning on experts, we're leaning on developers, we're leaning on people to get this up and running as fast as possible.
Who were they? Like, who were these people in Dubai, these developers?
So it was Junaid and Derek, who are business partners out in Dubai. I met Junaid because Junaid was working with one of the biggest crypto influencers in Dubai that I was consulting for. He was a COO and I was outside consultant. And so we would work hand in hand and we would have a lot of meetings, talk a lot about the business. He was very intelligent about the market, about crypto, about how things worked. And so eventually he decided to leave, and he was also invested in MLP.
Okay. I'm sorry.
No, yeah,
So what was his name again?
So our business partners out there were Junaid and Derek. And I worked with Junaid hand in hand because he was a CEO of one of the biggest crypto influencers in Dubai. And I was outside consultant. And so we would have a lot of meetings. We'd have a lot of work after hours to build this company that this crypto influencer was trying to build. And so he was also invested in MLP. And so we're both making a lot of money. We're both investing in this company. Everyone in Dubai, every crypto person is invested and giving it that golden stamp. The concept came from, why don't we just build it ourselves? And that's how Junaid and Derek kind of came into the mix, was they knew how to develop the system because they were active traders. Mm-hmm. So they knew how to develop the system. They knew the people that we needed to bring on board to get this up and running.
Got it. Okay. So that's when you were talking yesterday about like the white label versus Is that where that?
Yes,
Okay,
yeah.
so help me understand what you mean by like white label, because I think of like, okay, I want to sell my own mugs in the US and I'm going to get 1 million from China and then bring them over here and put my label on it. Is that, I mean, help me understand it from what you guys were
Yeah,
trying to
no.
do.
So basically, white labeling is there's another product in the market, and all we're doing is taking that product, rebranding it as our product.
Okay.
And then instead of funneling money directly to that product, we're funneling through our company. So the forward facing, the white label is our company,
Goliath.
Goliath.
Okay.
And then we would move that money over to the actual product.
Okay. Got it. Okay, that's all I needed to clear up from yesterday.
Yeah.
And so now let's talk about Nick Petrillo. Is that how he says it?
Nick Petrillo.
Okay. So in the structure of Goliath, Nick was, it says here overseer, but
He was our COO.
what did the CEO do for Goliath Ventures?
And he was our chief operations officer, so he was in charge of making sure that everything was moving forward. He was also in charge of overseeing all the directors. And really, we already had a system in place, so it was more so just someone implementing that system and someone working with our compliance, making sure that all our directors had their MSA agreements, their master service agreements signed with Goliath, making sure that they were compliant, making sure that they weren't doing things that they weren't supposed to be doing. And then, also his job entailed to oversee the numbers. And he would work with our accountant, Nadia, to review all the numbers, simplify them for my review, and then I would then instruct Nadia to send either the wires out or the crypto out.
That sounds like a lot of jobs.
It was a big team.
How did you meet Nick Petrillo?
So I was introduced to Nick through a mutual friend. Me and my friend's kids played baseball together. And at the time, I was going back and forth to Dubai quite often. And so when I had come back to one of my kids' games, my friend asked me, what do I do for a living? What industry are you in? And I told him that I'm a consultant. I deal with a lot in the crypto industry. I'm working with a lot of these crypto influencers and companies. And he goes, I think you need to meet my friend Nick. He loves crypto, but he keeps losing a bunch of money. And so one night, one big college basketball game was playing, and we went over to Nick's house to watch the game and have drinks. And that was the first time I met Nick.
How did you guys come to be partners to start Goliath?
To be honest with you, I was semi-retired, is what I tell people. Because I had made a lot of money. I was already wealthy. I was invested in so many different things, so many different companies, and then also had a very thriving consulting business. So when I first met Nick, it was strictly just friendship. We'd go over each other's houses for barbecues. We would hang out, after the kids' games. And there was no business talk. It wasn't until Nick started pressing, he didn't like the industry that he was in. He hated the medical sales industry. He said it was overregulated, and so he wanted out. And I think I was his out without even realizing it. And so he had pressed for a couple months to invest. And that's how the concept of us white labeling MLP started, was just, because eventually I was just like, I'm invested with this company, with MLP. If you want to invest alongside me, just go invest with them. But then Nick became privy to the referral fees and the commissions that could be made as many people as you introduced. And then that's when the idea was, why don't we just white label MLP and then create Goliath?
Why did you go into business with someone who had just settled with the DOJ?
I didn't find that out till 2.5 years later, when we started background checking all our employees and reviewing where our risks were, where our liabilities were. That's when I found out that Nick had settled with the DOJ.
So, people here, you're going into business with someone talking about investing a lot of money, and you didn't do a check on this guy to see, if he was clean?
It kind of goes back to, no one questioned us about our agreements. No one did their due diligence on our agreements. This was a person I met through a friendship, and we were friends for the longest time. He wanted to invest. He wanted to build a business. I understood his struggles because he's a father, and he wanted to spend more time with his kids. And so that's kind of all that I saw at that point. Was he wanted my life. He wanted, I was taking my kids to school every day. I was picking them up. I was going to their practices. I was going to their games. I was doing a lot of things with my kids that he wanted to do. And so when he had brought that to my attention, that's he kind of wanted to transition out of medical and kind of live more of a relaxed life. That's really, as a father, that's really all that I saw. So I didn't really have any reason to do a background check or you have a lot of people vouching for him. There was no reason for me to go to do more due diligence. Also, too, I'd never been in trouble with the DOJ or with any law enforcement agency. I don't even have a speeding ticket. So it's not one of those things that I would have naturally been like, let me go see if this guy has been in any trouble. He had a thriving medical business. He was making 20+ million a year in his medical business. He was a successful entrepreneur.
So when you found out 2.5 years later, did you try to cut ties?
No. Nick is the ultimate salesman. And, he tried to kind of explain it was civil and they settled. And, it was like kind of this back and forth that it wasn't really a big deal. And it was civil and that they settled. On the same side too, he's already so integrated into the company. And there's already so many things going on, and there's already millions of dollars invested on both sides. So it would have been extremely hard and difficult to cut ties with this individual.
So how did he run the operation?
What do you mean?
As you saw it, how day-to-day operations, checks and balances?
Oh, it was horrible. There were many times where decisions needed to be made, things needed to press forward. He needed to meet with the team, or he needed to go out to Dubai to press the guys harder and oversee those things because I was busy or I was doing other stuff. And it was just excuse after excuse after excuse. It was the worst person to put in that position.
When you say he was only about money, how did he go about it, getting the money?
I mean, he's the first one to submit his reports. He's the first one to text me and say, ready for my distribution, ready for my commission. Every time I penalized the team because they weren't working as hard or they weren't, communicating with their investors or doing their job, I penalized him too, and he would complain about it. And, he'd complain about taking phone calls, or he'd complain about having dinners or meetings with investors, when really that's your job. And you're making $4 million a month.
How was he making $4 million a month?
I mean, he at that point, he was a business partner. So he had an override on the whole fund. And so it wasn't just people that he brought in, it was everyone. So he would get 1% to 2% override on $300 million.
How did he go about bringing investors into the fund?
I don't really know how Nick got over $200 million in the fund and hundreds of partners. So basically, what Nick was doing was bringing in a doctor and giving them a sweetheart deal.
What is a sweetheart deal?
Say you come in and you're just a friend, I give you 5%. Well, these doctors are getting 8.5%, 7 or 7.5% when we're not even offering that at the time. And Nick's approving these things. So they're already getting a sweetheart deal up, on the front end. Then that doctor wants to bring in, the board of doctors that they're working or overseeing. Well, Nick would then offer them 0.5% or 1%. So those doctors that are coming in under the referral are getting a 5% or 4% return on their investment. And so Nick would give that doctor the difference because Nick always made his money off of 10.
10 or 12?
It would range. Okay. The parameters of either 10 or 12 depended on how much money was brought in that month and how well we did.
So where was the money coming from to give the doctors a return?
I mean, we had a lot of inflow. We had a lot of people investing in our company. So, I mean, essentially the money was coming from other investors.
Is it robbing Peter to pay Paul?
At this point, yeah.
At what point did that stop?
It was too late. By the time our products were developed, our payouts were way too big. What we should have done is froze everything, moved $60 million into our fund, and then restructured. But at least the money was making money and we could deal with the investor. We were just riding on our reputation of always making distributions on time, if not early. And that's what essentially, excuse my language, but fucked us.
Who made the decision to do that?
To do what?
To run the business that way.
It's collective. It was myself. We all knew what was going on. This is why we were in Dubai so much, because we were trying to push these products live. The problem is we fed the greed too much, not only to the investors, but to the employees. And my back is against the wall. We're the top 10, top 11 biggest alleged Ponzi scheme in the United States. My face was everywhere. I'm the CEO. So I think at first, I'm the target. And, I'm running the company. All the responsibilities sit with me. And so I think in that aspect, this is why other people haven't either got a criminal complaint or an indictment, because the focus was on me, and it worked masterfully to their plan. We did go through 2 extortion attempts early on, or the first one early on, the second one in 2025. And so that was really the only time we had big altercations or big arguments when it came to the business.
Tell me about the extortion.
So the first one came, it was either January 23 or January 24. I forget the year. but it was early on into Goliath. Nick receives a random text from a Canadian number. And the gist of the text was basically that they know we're running a fraudulent company. They have a mountain of evidence against us. They're going to report it to every government agency in the United States and in Canada. And the reason that I wasn't contacted, that they went to Nick, was because I was lawyered up. So it didn't matter if they came after me, because they knew that my attorneys would handle it. And some other things about my ego, and, I felt like I was untouchable. And they went to Nick because they said he's the more reasonable person, and that he has an opportunity to stop everything.
Did he?
No. Nick's text messages read, "What do you want to make this go away?" And they demanded 7 Bitcoin. I told Nick to tell him to go kick rocks, but Nick paid him. And that's when I knew we had a big problem.
So then it happened again last year.
So in September of 25, we were sponsoring this massive conference in Orlando. And we had been part of this organization. They're an entrepreneur organization. We had been part of them for a while.
This is the one down by...
It was at the Gaylord Palms.
Okay, yeah.
And it was in our backyard. Everyone knew that we were part of this organization, and we've, gone to the Kentucky Derby, to the Yankee World Series games.
This is every major player who's anybody is at.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's the fact that it's in Orlando. So we knew we had to be the title sponsor, and we knew we were very proud that it was in our hometown, and we wanted to showcase that. And so when the conference started, that next day, the second day of the conference, I now receive an extortion attempt. The person goes to insult me personally and make a whole bunch of claims.
The same number?
Different number.
Okay.
Still Canadian, but different number. This person makes a bunch of claims against me on my personal life, which are completely untrue. He then proceeds to attack 4 other people, a part of our team, 3 directors and Nick Petrillo, and then demands $2 million in crypto sent to a anonymous wallet. This is the same thing. This is the same time the stuff that's in New Zealand is happening too. So I call an emergency team meeting, and I'm just honest with the team. I said, everyone's aware of what's happening in New Zealand. Now we have this. And I wanted to inform our investors. I wanted to send an email out and just say, everything you're seeing on the media right now is nothing short than an extortion. Here's the evidence. Even putting the personal details that they put in that text about me. But Nick proposed that we put it to a team vote because it affected everyone. And so we put it to a team vote, and everyone but one person said, don't inform your investors. And so...
Who was that?
The person that said we should have. I don't remember which director it was. I just know it was one person, and then myself. That I was tired of being quiet. I was tired that people thought that they could throw these threats against me or my company and get away with it.
Because at this point, and we're talking 2025, you still haven't told a single investor that their money has not been invested.
Correct. But we're still making distributions, even though we were still having this media attack.
So did you pay the extortion?
No.
How much did they want?
They wanted $2 million in crypto, and they wanted it paid by 7 p.m. that day, or they were going to release information and pictures and stuff about me on the internet. The reason why I basically tell them they can go kick rocks is because I know there's no such things out there. I don't do drugs. The only bad thing that I do is drink, and I like to social drink. I don't, what they accuse me of is that I abuse women. I was married for 12 years. I was with my wife for 14. I had never hit her. I yelled at her one time in our whole relationship, and that's because she disrespected my mom in front of me, and then immediately apologized for raising my voice at her. Never once have ever lifted my hand towards a woman. And if I am an abuser, I think the woman that I was with for 14 years could attest. This is someone who's an abuser just doesn't pick that up one day. It's a